Hello and very warm welcome to Sansad TV's weekly news roundup, the World Panorama, where we take an in-depth look at major happenings across the globe during the week, from geopolitics, Russia-Ukraine war, environment, business, sports and entertainment. I'm your host, Rajiv Singh. Let us begin with the big stories of the week. China gets a new team and a new agenda. President Xi outlines the security plans. New Premier Li Keqing puts stress on high-quality growth. US regulators shut down America's 16th largest bank. A look at what the biggest collapse of a financial institution since 2008 financial crisis means for the global economy. Russian jet crashes US drone into Black Sea, raises fears of an escalation in Russia-Ukraine conflict. And British scientists tracked two icebergs that have broken away from Antarctica. Massive ice blocks measure the size of London and Cornwall and pose a threat to shipping. News now in detail. A Russian jet crashed a US drone into the Black Sea, raising fresh fears of an escalation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict and a direct NATO-Russia confrontation since Russia's all-out invasion of Ukraine.
A Russian fighter jet struck a US military drone, the MQ-9 Reaper, in international airspace over the Black Sea on Tuesday. The US State Department summoned the Russian ambassador to a meeting to protest the incident.
There are some problems regarding international waters. You see that, for example, we consider Crimea as a part of the Russian Federation. The United States does not recognize this status. And of course it's a contradiction, but does it mean that it's necessary to provoke Russian Navy or Russian Air Force on this issue? We have to be very cautious regarding our actions, taking into account what is going on in eastern part of Europe. So you see that we prefer to not to create a situation where we can face unintended clashes or unintended incidents between the Russian Federation and the United States.
The Pentagon claimed that Russian pilots dumped fuel in the path of the drone and then collided with it. All of which raised questions of whether the incident marked a significant escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war. US officials say that the collision may not have been deliberate, since the Russian Su-27 jets involved also suffered some damage. But they asserted that the incident will not dissuade them from operating in international airspace over the Black Sea. It was not known whether Russian forces tried to recover the destroyed drone in order to get their hands on the surveillance technology that was probably using. In addition to the weapons being used, the war in Ukraine has also seen the use of real-time intelligence on the movement of vessels in the Black Sea. Experts say that while America wants to continue the surveillance, it wishes to avoid getting drawn into a more direct confrontation with Moscow. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
The battle for Bukmut was at its fiercest this week, with Ukrainian forces said to be just barely hanging on in the city. The city is on the front lines in Donetsk Oblast in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. Here's a report.
Ukraine and Russia are reporting huge losses in their battle for Bukmut. The war has been grinding away for the eastern Ukrainian city for months now. In the past few days, Ukrainian President Zelensky says over 1,100 Russian troops have died. Many more are seriously injured. Russia claims it killed 220 Ukrainian service members this week. Experts say that while Bukmut has a little strategic value, it is a focal point for Russian commanders trying to score war victories. Also controlling Bukmut will bring Russia slightly closer to controlling the entire Donetsk region. The Ukrainian strategy in Bukmut, on the other hand, is to tie Russia's forces down and prevent Moscow from launching further offensives. The fierce battle in Bukmut has also brought the focus on Wagner Group. the private militia that is fighting for Russia. The Wagner group is led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, who released a video saying that his men have encircled the city. Ukrainian troops say that Wagner fighters were sent into attacks in large numbers over open ground, with many killed as a result. US sources claim that the group wants to capture Bukmut in order to control its salt and gypsum mines. So far, the US has not labeled the Wagner group as a foreign terrorist organization, despite leveling charges of terrorism against it. US officials say that doing so could jeopardize America's relations with many African nations to which the Wagner group provides military assistance. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Li Keqiang, a trusted ally of President Xi Jinping, has been sworn in as the new premier of China. China's parliament approved Li Keqiang as the country's new premier, replacing the retiring Li Keqiang. What does the development mean for India and the world? Let us find out.
(2,936 votes in favor, 3 against and 8 abstentions. An emphatic endorsement for Li Keqiang as the new premier in the Great Hall of People. A close confidant of President Xi Jinping, Li Keqiang's elevation to the post comes after a recent public outcry against his brutal zero-COVID lockdown on Shanghai last spring. China is currently facing weak consumer and private industry confidence, sluggish demand for exports, and worsening relations with the United States. With its neighbors, including India, watching its moves closely, China's new administrative team has set a GDP growth target of 5%, the lowest for the country in 3 decades. In his first media interaction, Li Keqiang said China will boost jobs and urged officials to make friends with entrepreneurs. He asserted that the United States can and must cooperate with China. President Xi, on the other hand, emphasized security concerns. He told the National People's Congress that China must modernize its military to make it a Great Wall of Steel. He also promised to distribute the fruits of development more equitably by asking private firms to pitch in his policy of common prosperity. On Taiwan, Xi said China must oppose pro-independence and secessionist activities and the interference of external forces. After replacing top security officials with trusted allies, Xi currently enjoys more clout than any Chinese president in the modern era. The world will be watching what this will mean for global affairs. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Let us now look at some other important political developments that took place during the week. Leaders of the United States, Australia and Britain unveiled details of a plan to provide Australia with nuclear-powered attack submarines to counter China's ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. In a joint statement, US President Joe Biden, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak endorsed plans for the AUKUS project. Under the deal, the United States intends to sell Australia 3 US Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarines with an option to buy 2 more. China's foreign ministry denounced the nuclear submarine pact announced by Australia, United Kingdom and the United States. It said the 3 countries are disregarding global concerns and going further down a dangerous road, adding that the US should show sincerity and meet China halfway to bring the bilateral relationship back on track with practical action. North Korea said its latest intercontinental ballistic missile launch is a stronger warning against the combined US military exercises with South Korea, while blaming them for creating a most unstable security environment in the region. Thursday's launch from North Korea's capital area came hours before South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol traveled to Tokyo for a summit with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Anti-West protesters tore down a European Union flag outside the Georgian Parliament building before attempting to replace it with a Georgian one. Several hundred protesters from the ultra-right Georgian Alt-Info group had marched through the center of the Georgian capital, Tbilisi. Before rallying outside parliament, many government institutes in Georgia fly both the Georgian and EU flags. The incident appeared to be a reaction to recent pro-Western and anti-government protests, which led to a controversial foreign agents law, which critics said are modeled on a similar Russian law being dropped. Venezuela's opposition leader Enrique Capriles said he will run for the October primary election, even though he is being barred from public office after being nominated as the Justice First Party's candidate. The two times presidential hopeful said that disqualification is under discussion and he will not wait for a final decision. Capriles was barred from holding political office in 2017 for 15 years amid crackdown on dissidents by Nicolas Maduro government. In a stark reminder of the subprime crisis over a decade ago, U.S. regulators shut down the country's 16th largest bank in the biggest collapse of a financial institution since the 2008 financial crisis. What comes next for the depositors and the global economy and SVB's startup beneficiaries? A report.
Who is responsible for a run on the bank? Shareholders are suing the executives of the failed California-based Silicon Valley Bank for not telling them how a rise in interest rates could impact the bank's business that made it susceptible to a bank run. Its depositors were mostly technology workers and venture capital-backed companies who scrambled to get their money soon after the bank announced plans to raise up to $1.75 billion to strengthen its capital position. The bank had $209 billion in assets and over $175 billion in deposits when it tanked. The U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation could not immediately find a buyer for the bank's assets, signaling how fast the depositors had cashed out. The US FDIC also seized the bank's assets in the middle of the business day, a sign of how dire the situation had become, even as other countries raced to minimize damage. There was relief for depositors in Britain as HSBC came to the rescue of the UK arm of the failed SVB. The US President Joe Biden also tried to reassure depositors.
I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again, and to protect American jobs and small businesses. Look, the bottom line is this. Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. Let me also assure you we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed.
Silicon Valley Bank had acted as a major financial conduit for venture capital-backed companies, hit hard in the past 18 months as the US Federal Reserve raised interest rates and made riskier tech assets less attractive to investors. The bank's downfall marks the largest failure of a US bank since Washington Mutual during the 2008 financial crisis. The bank was heavily exposed to the tech industry, but experts have ruled out a domino effect for the banking sector, as the situation had been in the months leading up to the recession in 2008. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Let us now look at the business developments in the globe this week with the stories from Nepal, Saudi Arabia, Germany, Lebanon, and the UK.
Nepali Prime Minister Pushpa Kumar Dahal expressed hope for a better trade and investment relationship with China. Addressing the inaugural session of the Nepal-China Investment and Business Forum 2023 in Kathmandu, he noted that China remains Nepal's second largest trading partner and the largest source of foreign direct investment. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby has defended the U.S. decision to approve Saudi Arabia buying up to 121 jetliners from Boeing. Two Saudi Arabian airlines said they will order 78 jetliners from Boeing and take options to buy 43 more in a major boost for the American aircraft manufacturer. The order will be divided between Saudi Arabia's flag carrier Saudia and the planned new airline called Riyadh Air, which Saudi officials introduced over the weekend. Germany's defense industry says it is ready to supply arms and ammunition to Ukraine but needs clarity about what the country requires before investing in further production capacity. Ukraine became the world's third largest importer of arms in 2022 after Russia's invasion triggered a big flow of military aid to Kiev from the United States and Europe. Lebanon's embattled currency hit a new low, trading at an unprecedented 1 lakh Lebanese pounds to the dollar on the black market as the crisis hit country's banks went on strike. The pound, also known as the lira, has kept sinking since Lebanon's financial meltdown in 2019 following decades of corruption and mismanagement by the country's political and financial elite. UK Treasury Chief Jeremy Hunt said the UK economy will grow in 2024 as he unveiled his yearly budget in the House of Commons in London. Hunt said the Office of Budget Responsibility forecasts that the UK economy will grow each year, increasing by 1.8% in 2024, 2.5% in 2025, 2.1% in 2026 and 1.9% in 2027. He added that the defence budget will increase by £11 billion over the next 5 years in response to the war in Ukraine.
Now let us look what do we have from the field of environment and climate.
Tropical storm Freddy, one of the most powerful storms to hit the southern hemisphere, has claimed more than 190 lives in Malawi and Mozambique after ripping through southern Africa for the second time in a month. President Lazarus Chakwera declared a state of disaster in the country's southern region. 2 icebergs the size of London and Cornwall are posing a threat to shipping, fishing and wildlife. British scientists are tracking the 2 icebergs that have broken away from Antarctica and may take decades to melt. One of them, called A81, is the size of Greater London and is on a course to go into the Weddell Sea as strong currents continue to push it ahead. The iceberg is approximately 1,550 square kilometers in size. Brushing aside pressure from environmentalists, the Biden administration has given green signal to a controversial oil drilling project in Alaska's North Slope. This war-bar drilling in nearly 3 million acres of the Beaufort Sea, closing it off from oil exploration, and limit drilling in more than 13 million acres in a vast swath of land known as National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska. Iraq is finding new ways to meet a third of the country's electricity demands using renewable energy. Iraqi Prime Minister has announced a blueprint to tackle climate change by 2030. Climate change has affected Iraq's ongoing struggle to combat cholera. Plans to tackle climate change includes building renewable energy plants, modernizing inefficient and outdated irrigation techniques, reducing carbon emissions, combating desertification, and protecting the country's biodiversity.
That's all we have in World Panorama. We will be back next week, same time. Till then, keep watching Sansad TV for more news and informative programs. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.